Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Perfect Pixel podcast. This week, a two-part special covering the Broken Fang collections. Stay tuned, sit back, and enjoy.
Starting off, we have the Control Collection, and in this collection, the covert skin is the Op Fade, and as we've seen with the prices throughout the operation, the price of the Op Fade has been steadily dropping. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that the Op Fade started out as being an idea of a replacement to the Gungnir and the Prince from the previous collections, and it just didn't hold up. It had less ideal patterns, and it's just not as rare, and lots of the focus has been put on the Control collection versus the other two collections, which really has made it a higher quantity skin rather than the variability that occurred in the previous operation.
In comparison to the Gungnir, I think within the first couple weeks of the operation, we had already hit the number of Op Fades as not number of Gungnir's. And as most of the community agrees on, the Op Fade is nowhere close in terms of cosmetics to the Gungnir and the Prince. I would say in terms of looks, I would compare the Op Fade to somewhere along the lines of maybe to a Medusa, but definitely nowhere close to the god tier ops such as the Gungnir and the Dragon Lore.
See, and as I don't even see it being a Medusa. Medusa's got the history in the skin, and the history in the game that kind of gives it that edge. I would put it down with being an Asimov. It's going to be a staple of the game, but not necessarily be the thing that everybody wants in the game.
You say it's staple of the game, but with the price of it still being quite high, and actually the highest covert out of the three collections, you really think it'll have the same accessibility as an Asimov?
I think it really does. It's not going to be at the same price level as an Asimov, but you have what is the red line at $25. You've got the Asimov around $100, and you're going to have this. I see this settling. It could settle around $800 or $900 when everything is said and done, and that could be a kind of large market play for these because there's going to be such high quantity of them available.
Yeah, and I think the fade finish in general just plays well into that kind of liquidity. It doesn't have any designs that could be kind of like controversial. It's anyone can pretty much agree that it's not a bad skin at all.
No, absolutely agree with that. In terms of an investment, I wouldn't pick it up right now. I think if it kind of receives that liquid status, that there's enough of them on the market that they trade like a Dragon Claw hook used to in Dota, with that kind of $500 to $600 level, very liquid at that price, but of it being a CS:GO item instead.
Yeah, another problem I see with investing and trading, like you were saying, is that because the Op Fade has all these finishes, it's a pattern-based skin and it has different fade percentages. I feel that might make it a little more nuanced as in terms of a liquid item, and also not quite a lot more difficult to see which fade percentage is actually the most desired and could be actually held as a collector's item. Now, moving on to the restricted category, we have the blue phosphor as well as the USPS target acquired. Let's start with the blue phosphor.
I only brought up the blue phosphor simply because it is primarily, if you go and look at it, it's investors' hands, not players' hands. The Hot Rod, which is the red skin version of this sapphire, is very much in players' hands. If you go and look at who owns the blue phosphor right now, it is primarily people that have multiple of them in their inventory and are using it as trade-up potential, as well as the growth of that skin being a good investment. And I don't like that because when there's too many of them on the market, there aren't enough when the investors stop buying, the price crashes very quickly.
Yeah, so completely agree with that. We're kind of seeing like a false amount of demand for them. And when the investors are just holding and there's not actual players who will pick it up to play with, we're going to see that price come down. Now, I heard you comparing it to the hot rod. I feel the hot rod is actually an anodized finish and not quite the same as a sapphire or ruby or emerald.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that comparison that it's not. It's the idea that it's the single colored skin. This has a little bit more swirl in it with the blue and the as well as a possible green layer pattern. There's no real emerald, but it's a lighter green mixed with the blue. There is some good looks to that, but there's nothing that is standout single colored.
Moving down another tier to the classified, we have the berries and cherries. And now, when this first came out, I think I got very excited because I saw that it had patterns, and I also went through and found the rarest ones. And so, what are your thoughts on these very rare, like maximum blue, maximum red patterns?
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't care about the maximum red. Their maximum red is just a 5/7 candy apple. Lots of them exist out there. Not anything exciting. The all blue patterns I very much do like. I own one myself, and it's something that even though there's lots of them available, I still think they'll be worth a lot in the future. Simply because there are not enough of them for the future demand of the game. And when I say that, I'm not saying, well, people aren't going to buy it just because it's $200 or $100, whatever the price is. People are going to buy it because it's going to become one of those collector's items that a lot of larger investors will stock away 5, 10, 15 of them into an inventory, and it'll disappear out of the market for a very long period of time.
Yeah, I think even right now, if you look on the Steam market, you're not going to find a reasonably priced S tier pattern of the berries and cherries at all. And you might find some A tier patterns that have a bit of overpay, but I think this is definitely going to be a pretty decent pickup. And if you want to find more information on these patterns, I've actually made a video on this on my channel.
Yeah, link down below. We will make sure to include that for videos to a couple of the rare patterns from this operation that Frosty's already gone and put together.
Yeah, now I see you also have the Scar 20 Magna Carta on this list, which is why did you want to talk about this skin?
So the Scar 20 Magna Carta I see as being a pure investment from this operation. It is in the Control Collection, which means it does trade up to rarer patterns and the better skins, but it is also the cheapest blue in this entire operation. So if you're looking at the possibilities of trade ups, you're looking at the possibility of multiple operation or multiple collection trade ups. That becomes a very cheap blue to use in the grand scheme of things when you look at older operations being more expensive, with the possibility of a trade up to a current operation item. Those will become very cheap towards the end of the operation, and there's definitely something that you'll want to look at as a nice pickup that is at a reasonable price.
Now, a lot of people have been asking me this, and I heard you talking about this earlier. You said that you could see the off fade going all the way down to $800. Now, since the Scar 20 is also in the same collection, wouldn't it make that a bad investment?
It does and it doesn't. The people that are buying a blue aren't thinking about a trade up to a red. What I'm thinking of is trade ups to the restricted level as well as the classified levels. There are a lot of very good, well priced skins in that in those variations of the restricteds, and this is a good blue to trade up to some of those restricteds as a possibility of mixing it with other collections as well as other operations skins as a general trade up filler. that gives someone a chance to get a rare patterned item.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the things people overlook is that in these collections, it's not just the covert skin that holds the value. There's also very nice skins like the blue phosphor, the berries and cherries that also add value to the Scar 20 Magna Carta.
Yeah, there's the UMP crime scene in there as well. There's the USP,
Target
the
acquired.
Target acquired. Don't know them all off by heart yet. Um, so there's lots of other skins in there that people are still looking to put their hands on that there may be enough supply for right now, but after the operation, as people occasionally will do a trade up here and there, a lot of that supply may drop, and the interest for some of those lower skins becomes a little bit more elevated.
Yeah, and keep in mind, these skins are not going to come back most likely because we're seeing new collections for each operation now. And so once that supply completely ceases, these are all the ones we're left with.
Yeah, and I fully believe that now that there's enough interest in new skins and new collections that with new operations that they will be making new collections for each operation going forward. Following that, we're going to move on to the Havoc Collection. Not a big fan of the red here in this collection. Looks a little poor, but I will say that the Op Silk Tiger does make for a good look of an investment.
Yeah, I think the Silk Tiger is definitely quite a nice op, although some people were complaining that it's a black scope, but I think that goes well with the actual skin itself. And I think it has nice vibrant colors and also the tiger, of course. So I'd say it's a very nice skin, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me personally, I would have preferred the pattern to continue through the scope. I just think that there would have been opportunity for some funny patterns with the tiger heads to be positioned with rare patterns on the scope, so you could have like kind of the Cato 14 I Buy Power kind of fake with a tiger's face on the scope. That sort of idea, I think that would have been fun. But otherwise, it is a good skin. It is on the pricier side, and I honestly think that it will stay on the pricier side, and that the Mac 10 that opposes it in as a classified skin will actually drop a lot in price to be the primary thing that will be used for trade ups towards the AK-47 X-ray.
You were saying that the Mac 10 would drop, and I think that's definitely going to be the case with such a nice op along with it. And I think the Mac 10 itself is also, it looks very nice, and it has that kind of like snake skin finish.
I don't quite get the snake skin finish. I prefer something like the Lapis Gator, with a blue from one of the older collections. Just as the snake skin looks like an odd pattern on there. It looks quite nice out of game, but once you look at it in game, you realize that the pattern isn't quite 3D enough for it to look real, whereas it does a much better job on the Lapis Gator of that 3D rendering, which I think really makes that Mac 10 kind of become the thing that will fall in price after the operation.
Yeah, most definitely. And moving down a tier to the restricted, we have the SG553 Hypnotic. And this is the hypnotic pattern, which is also found on the Desert Eagle. And I think this is definitely, I wouldn't say it's a bad skin, but it's also nothing special either.
No, I enjoy the Hypnotic as I think that it captures the same essence of the Hypnotic Deagle, but it also brings the old school charm of the SG553 Ultraviolet, whereas just the body is colored. I think that gives a kind of nice throwback, as this being a nice kind of historic skin to the game. That gives it the right look and the right kind of mentality for this type of skin in this position within this new operation.
Yeah, overall, I would say it looks pretty nice. It's got that like old school feel because it just reminds you of the Deagle.
Yeah, and it's once again a padded skin, so you can get things like zebra's eyes patterns you can get. Um, there are different kind of full hypnotics, so you get the full eye of the pattern items where the eye is on the center, the eye is above the trigger, the eye is on the bullet, like the bullet catch. So there's a lot of different patterns that play in with the different darker pieces of the skin that can be rare possible patterns for it.
And also in this collection, we have down, of course, we have the P90 Tiger Pit, and this is gonna be the skin that's gonna be used for all these trade ups because it's the SMG and it's also not the best looking.
It's an SMG. It's not the best looking, and it has a float range that is actually focused towards more factory news and minimal wears, since it only has a zero point 0.5 float max. That means that the battle scars of this skin will probably become the most expensive of this skin, but the lower floats will then be used for trade ups. So it'll actually be a good mix of even pricing across the collection, which will usually hold the price of the skin back from really accelerating above and beyond and past that point. Also, with this skin, I have gone through all of the wear patterns to it. There's not a good pattern to this skin where there's like a tiger that fully has itself on the skin, so it's going to be less collectible by people that are animal skin style collectors, similar to the Op Paw, that are looking for an animal related skin.
Yeah, I think overall it kind of reminds me of the Silk Tiger, just a lot darker and not quite as good looking.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's just not as good looking. It was a well put together, well thought of skin. It matched the idea of the collection. It just didn't execute very well. That's all.
Yeah, and also it's a lower tier, so it makes sense that the colors are a lot more muted and it's not super vibrant. Now that we have Havoc out of the way, let's continue on to the Ancient Collection. And so the classified AK in this collection is going to be the Panthera Onca. And I personally have one of these in Battle Scarred because for higher floats, the mag of the AK actually scratches to show kind of this tribal pattern, and I think that looks kind of cool. And also, something to keep note of is that the body of the AK really does not scratch at all. So even very, very battle scarred, the whole panther is still there.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a limited scratch skin that it actually gets darker and wears into a separate pattern, similar to how the stickers were scraped in the Shattered Web operation. So as the pattern gets worse and worse, it actually becomes almost a new skin in a sense, which does look quite good. And I think a lot of people, once they realize that, will start to pick it up. Not to say that it's not being picked up already. It is still in the higher price in terms of skins. Not going to be for everybody to invest in, but if you're looking for a good play skin and you have some money that you want to be able to invest and have a good play skin, that might be the thing that people start to look at.
Yeah, and I think as a general rule of thumb, about 0.85 float and higher, the whole tribal pattern on the mag is kind of displayed. And if you go too high, I think the scratching actually gets so bad that some of the pattern is removed. I'd say about 0.85 to 0.95. That's going to be the range you're going to look for.
Yes.
No.
So going to the restricted, we go with the USPS Ancient Visions. Now, this is not a good skin. This is a bad skin that is in a good position. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think honestly, I feel the USPs in this operation have really kind of disappointed. The target acquired is all right, and this one is definitely not very special at all. The colors are really quite muted, but for some people that's what they like, but I think generally it's not going to be a very desired USP. In the Ancient Collection with some pretty nice skins above it, like the Panther Anka, we have the Welcome to the Jungle M4A1S. It's going to be good as trade ups for the trade ups.
See, now what I find very interesting about this skin is that it is actually built as that there's no battle scarred version of this skin for its float range. So once again, it forces there to be more factory news and minimal wears, which make this skin quite desirable. I think this skin had a good idea and a good premise to it. It just missed the mark. If you look at it, it's kind of got squiggles and swirls of kind of like designed to be graffiti art that's more kind of native styled or older styled. It just missed the mark on it. It doesn't have any real interest to it, and it's just not well executed. But I think that it will stay popular with people wanting to trade up for the Panthera as well as the P90 to do one or two 20 or 40% trade ups to those items.
Moving on to the mil spec, let's first talk about the Og Carved Jade. Now, when this first came out, Heapings actually got very excited because he liked the patterns on this one.
Yeah, so I am a green skin collector. I like to have. I shouldn't say I'm a green skin collector. I am a fair pattern collector. I prefer my skins to be as crisp and clean and perfect and and of the same color as possible. So things like I have the Franklin collection with green stickers on them because they match with the green and the green. That's just a weird thing that I like to use while I'm looking at in game. It keeps me focused on my crosshair. This pattern that is all green is pattern 203. That is a perfectly green-sided pattern. Now, a lot of people have said, oh, I don't really like that. I'm not going to spend money for it. I spent the money for it. I'm happy that some of the other people have spent money on it as well. But I think that it's not well known enough that there are very few people that know about it out there. I have had offers for it that are for a lot more than I paid for it, and I'm still not going to let it go anywhere near for what they were looking to pay. So I think that I'm only going to get more offers after the operation because it's a pattern that doesn't exist because nobody seems to open the Ancient Collection.
Yeah, and something interesting about these patterns is that for the berries and cherries, we had multiple S tier patterns that were pretty much max blue. For this one, there's only one pattern, and that's this 203 pattern, and so that's going to make it a lot more rare. And especially with the Ancient Collection getting less opens, we only see like 20 to 30 as of right now.
I don't even think there's that many. I think we're at
Really?
16. I think we're at 16.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a
We
really
only have we only have 16 as of right now, and that's including minimal wear and factory new.
and we'll round the of the Ancient Collection with the FAMAS Darkwater. Once again, another mil spec skin, but this is, I think, following along the M4A1S Darkwater. This follows in giving you a FAMAS skin of the Darkwater. This is going to catch a lot of the older players of CSGO and what their styles are. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think this skin is definitely a nice, clean, darker FAMAS skin, and overall, I'd say in this game right now, there aren't that many like super, like old school FAMAS skins. They're all kind of like they have like weird art on them. They're not really gonna appeal that much to the older players. I think this darker pattern, like it's not super like vibrant or anything, really lends itself well to sticker crafts, and I feel we're gonna see like a 4x crown foil of this, and that would definitely look very nice.
Yeah, I have to say that it's not going to appeal to everybody because it is keeping with the older traditions of having a point 0.1 starting lowest float. So we're partway into minimal wear. So it does look scraped up, it does look scratched, but it's the people that enjoy the game and have enjoyed the collection for a long period of time that are willing to put in the effort to own the entire collection of their skins, and they'll be picking up this skin for sure. And I think that's going to drive a lot of interest around when these items get used for trade ups. There's going to be a lot less of them overall, and those collectors will outnumber the people that are looking to trade this up, and this won't become a trade up item. it'll be used almost exclusively for the people that want the older nostalgia back into the early days of CS.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great point to make. How people who aren't really as interested are definitely going to just trade this up thinking, oh, it doesn't look that good. I'm just going to trade it up. And then the collectors that actually want it are going to have to pay more, which is going to drive the prices up and the supply down.
Yep, absolutely. Fully agree with that. All right, so stay
Yeah.
tuned for part two. Part two will be released, depending on when you're viewing this, tomorrow, one day after the release of this original version. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.